This is my vow. All gods will die.
I didn't know much about Gore the God Butcher going into this film, and even I'm disappointed. So you know you fucked up. I don't usually make sit down and talk commentary style videos, but I kind of felt like experimenting with the content I make on this channel, produce something that isn't just the heavy research long form analysis videos I already make, while also talking about stuff I actually care about. Also, I built this desk/set you see behind me for the intention of using it whenever I'm on camera for videos, so I'm gonna show it off. So, today I want to talk about Mr. Gore the God Butcher, who appears in the new Thor movie, which has not been received well. This won't be a review of Thor Love and Thunder. There are plenty of other YouTubers who do that type of content, but if you want my quick review of it, here's my Letterboxd review. I laughed a few times, I cringed a few times, I cringed more than I laughed. Overall, it was a very painfully average experience. From what I see, this thing has been getting mixed reviews, bordering on the bad side. Surprisingly, this film actually sparked tons of discussion surrounding topics like how Thor is treated like a joke, the quality of the VFX, how Marvel treats VFX artists like shit, which could be a video on its own, and how Phase 4 of Marvel feels kind of aimless. But I don't see a lot of people talk about Gore the God Butcher, and the few people who do mention him as being like the highlight of this film, which I agree with, but I think he could have been so much more. I legitimately think he had the potential to be one of the MCU's best villains, but they wasted him. To understand my feelings, we have to go all the way back to when the trailers first dropped. I had no idea Christian Bale was going to be in the MCU, let alone play this guy. And he's one of the greatest actors we have now. Man's literally destroys his body for a role, so you know he's committed. On top of that, the trailers made him look so cool. He sounds cool, his design is cool. I really like how his black and white aesthetic kind of contrasts with the more colorful aspects of this film. Quote unquote colorful, it's still a Marvel film. The film still looked kinda goofy, bordering on annoying, but at least Gore had me intrigued. And watching this film, he's actually set up pretty well. We open on Gore and his daughter walking through a desert. They're weak and they're tired. They're pretty much on the brink of death. Gore actually worships a sun god as evident by a necklace he wears. He prays to their god for salvation to no avail. There's a bit of tragic irony here considering he worships a sun god, but they're actually dying at the hands of the sun. Unsurprisingly, his daughter eventually dies. Before Gore himself can go, he sees a random jungle appear out of nowhere. He explores it and finds water and fresh fruit to eat. He also finds a dead body and the very same sun god he worships, celebrating his death. This is because the dead body was actually the last wielder of the Necro Sword, a sword that gives its wielder the power to kill gods. Upon seeing Gore, the god asks where the rest of his followers are, to which he replies that they are all dead. And he doesn't care. Despite seeing all the suffering Gore has gone through in his name, he doesn't feel like helping. He's just gonna let him die on this planet while he goes in search of new followers. Here, Gore's whole perspective on life has been shattered. He spent his entire life and sacrificed his family in the name of a god who doesn't care about him. So naturally, when the Necro Sword summons itself into his hands, he uses its power to kill the god, and then makes the vow that he is going to kill all gods. Admittedly, it's still a little bit goofy in its presentation, but it's still a strong and effective way to introduce Gore as a character, especially considering that Gore is right. This man lost his whole community, his family, and most recently his daughter, just for his god to tell him to his face, "You don't matter." That's like an awakening moment. That's like a Joker origin story moment. With nothing left to lose, he just kills him, a very natural response to this whole experience. Even if we don't agree with his stance to kill all gods, we at least understand why he seeks vengeance. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but yeah, even this film emphasizes that Gore is correct. We later see that the gods are portrayed as being lazy and arrogant, not caring about their own followers, and only caring about their own well-being. They only care about indulging in their own pleasures and turn a blind eye to the suffering of everyone else. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, Gore is correct. But sadly, this opening is not only just the highlight for Gore as a character, but also for this film as a whole. Yeah, this thing peaks in the opening. Oh boy. This is by far the only part of the film I was emotionally invested in, because oh shit, they're actually going down the route I thought they were taking this character, and I was all on board. But they dropped the ball so fucking hard. Again, I'm not going to recap the film as a whole, just talk about the plot in relation to how it treats Gore. We get hints of his massacre when the Guardians of the Galaxy get some notice of his rampage. There's some cool imagery in there, some gods who are hanging like they were slabs of meat, cause, you know, he's called Gore the God Butcher. The next time we physically see him is when Gore attacks New Asgard, which is the place Valkyrie governs. And unfortunately, it's here where Gore's quality as a character takes a nosedive, and he kind of becomes a cartoon villain. So the scene begins with Gore walking upon New Asgard, where he unleashes his shadow demons, which is something I'm not a big fan of. For whatever reason, the MCU loves having these nameless, faceless monsters that heroes can kill without feeling any emotion or remorse. It makes conflict feel weightless and lack tension because obviously no one is gonna die fighting some low-level goon. So yeah, Thor and Jane, who is also Thor now, which I don't feel like explaining, and Valkyrie are all fighting shadow demons for most of this film. Awesome, great, I love it. What I thought would be pretty cool is having like some nice weapon combat. You know, the sword versus a huge battle axe. It happens here and a bit later near the end of the film, but that's about it. For the most part, it's just fighting these shadow monsters, which is kinda lame. Speaking of lame, Gore's army is getting their ass kicked. So, as a last response, Gore kidnaps the kids of New Asgard, which doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I understand why they're doing it, and man, does it make me even more upset. Another problem I have with the MCU is that they'll give their villains some pretty good, strong motivations, but to balance that out, to make sure the audience knows that this guy is the bad guy, they'll make them do some random evil shit. Take for instance the Vulture. He's a hardworking man turned villain, due in part to the government and superheroes killing his business. He is a thief who steals and sells illegal alien weapons. And like Gore, his motivations are rooted in feeling wronged by those in power. And he's not wrong for feeling this way, he makes some valid points. But in a move that is completely out of character, he kills the Shocker, which is followed by a classic MCU joke.
I thought this was the anti-gravity gun.
The best part about this joke is that it emphasizes how this is so out of character for Vulture. The Vulture isn't a murderer. He's not evil because he kills people. He's evil because he sells weapons to dangerous people. He's just some guy forced into this corner as he tries to support a family in this rapidly evolving world. And the film does a great job of emphasizing this. This scene is just a minor issue in an otherwise strong villain. But the issue with Gore is so much worse. Unlike Vulture, Gore is evil because he actually does kill people. That's his thing. But I kid you not, instead of actually going out and killing gods, the worst thing Gore does on camera is kidnap these kids. He doesn't just kidnap these kids, he also traumatizes them. After this fight scene, the next few times we see Gore, he's literally just trying to scare kids by killing bugs in front of them. What the hell is the point of this? Gore's beef is with the gods, not with kids. His motivations as a character are rooted in the fact that his kid suffered at the hands of gods. But we see him scare kids more than we see him kill gods. He's called Gore the God Butcher, not Gore the Child Traumatizer. This is so out of character for what we know about him. Why is he doing this? Well, let me tell you about another trope I don't like, and that's mind corruption. I find mind corruption kinda lame, because it essentially takes a character and their motivations, throws it out a window, and replaces it with someone else's. In this case, the Necro Swords. Yeah, when Gore made his vow to kill all gods, this came with the caveat that he would achieve this by reaching eternity. Eternity being a celestial being that grants you one wish. This is all told to him by the soul of the Necrosword or something. So now his plan to kill all gods has become a little more complex. To open the gate to eternity, he needs Stormbreaker, Thor's battle axe. So to do this, he kidnaps the kids to bait Thor to the Shadow Realm, which, yes, this planet right here is called the Shadow Realm, I'm not kidding. Once there, he's going to steal Stormbreaker, travel to eternity, use Stormbreaker, and then make his wish. It's a convoluted plan for something that really shouldn't be. You already had Thor's attention by killing gods, just keep doing that. You don't need to bait him into anything, he was already after you. Gore already had great motivation to kill gods, you don't need the sword to reinforce those ideas. Cause at that point, you don't really need Gore as a character. If Gore is just a vessel for this sword's goals, then Gore could literally just be any random guy who found the sword. We've known this man for like 15 minutes and we're already downplaying his character. This child traumatizer side of Gore is either stupid because it's so detached from what we already know about him, or it's lame because it's just the sword talking through him. Even if you wanted to go down this route with Gore, couldn't you at least use this as a chance to give him some nuance? Like maybe add a brief scene of him being disgusted with what he's become. Gods were letting his kids suffer and now he's doing the same. Seeing him talk to the kids for the first time, I thought this was obviously where it was gonna go. But as far as I can remember, I saw it like 2 weeks ago, there is no such scene. It's literally just a forced plot device. In just one scene to the next, we have already butchered Gore's character. But don't worry, it gets so much worse. So because Gore stole all the kids, Thor and company go to this kind of god sanctuary to ask for help in saving these kids. And the gods give him a resounding no. So here's Thor's epiphany, or at least where it should be. Gore was right, the gods don't actually care about the safety of their followers. When Zeus comes in, he literally talks about planning an orgy, which, yeah, you heard me right, they talk about orgies in this film, which is really funny because there were some kids in this audience, and I can imagine little Timmy going to his parents after the film and saying, hey, what's an orgy? And they had to explain that mess. That might be the funniest thing about this film, to be honest. But yeah, this is an epiphany for Thor because before this, he's talking about how the gods are great, the gods are powerful, how they're gonna help them. But then getting here, he realizes that they're all kind of lazy and also kind of scumbags. We even see a shot of Dionysus, known as the wine god and sometimes known as the god of pleasure. He's the only other Greek god here aside from Zeus, and I think that better emphasizes that these gods only care about indulging in pleasure. Now, even though this scene confirms Gore's motivations, we've already begun butchering his character, so what was the point of confirming his motivations if you're not gonna do anything with it? This scene should be a lot more impactful than it actually is. Just like Gore, Thor had to kill Zeus because he refused to help him and tried to attack him. But that barely has any effect on Thor, Jane, or even Valkyrie, which is strange cause if you remember, Valkyrie held similar resentments towards the gods like Gore. She lost all her friends and her lover, which is revealed in this film, due to a conflict between the gods.
Look, I already faced her once back when I believed in the throne, and it cost me everything. That's what's wrong with Asgard. The throne, the secrets, the whole golden sham.
She did go through a whole character arc where she realized Thor was one of the good ones, but even in this film, it's clear she still holds some resentments towards them. Out of anyone in this group, you'd think it'd be Valkyrie that voices the opinion that maybe the gods aren't as innocent as we think they are. Maybe Gore has a point. But no, this idea is never explored, even when Gore literally confronts her about it.
Oh, the gods failed you too.
Yes, we can. When the women you loved lay dying on the battlefield. As your family was massacred.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting questions this film could bring up, but just don't, because the film doesn't care to ask them. All of this should have been an epiphany for Thor, but it's treated as just one big joke, which perfectly summarizes this whole film. Also, by the way, Thor is able to talk to the kids through Heimdall's son, and during one of their conversations, he mentions that you shouldn't meet your heroes because you might be disappointed. So the film actually acknowledges that this event changed Thor's perspective a little bit, but they go nowhere with it, so awesome. By the way, we've reached the third act by now, and all Gore has done is scare kids. Fuck me, dude, really? They don't even bother showing Gore killing any gods. Don't you think it's a little bit of false advertising to have a character named Gore the God Butcher and not have him do any god butchering? Those small, brief shots in the beginning were actually kinda sick. More of that, please. Anyways, I'll try to get through the rest of this film as quickly as I can. In the Shadow Realm, Jane finds out what Gore's real plan is and throws Stormbreaker off the planet. Gore ends up trapping all of them with his shadows. Like I mentioned before, he calls out Valkyrie for being a hypocrite, but they don't do anything with that story-wise. Thor calls Stormbreaker, they have a fight, Valkyrie gets injured, then they try to escape back to Asgard, but Gore gets his hands on Stormbreaker and steals it as they teleport back. I mean, I like how the fight was in black and white. That was cool, I guess. I guess I have to mention this because it's kind of important for the ending. Jane has cancer, and she's using Mjolnir to keep her alive. But it's actually draining her of her mortal energy, and if she uses it one more time, she's going to die. So, Thor confronts Gore alone and fights more shadow monsters. This time, he gives the kids some of Mjolnir's energy, so that they can help. And you know what? I'll admit, it was kinda cute. Especially the girl who was using her little stuffed rabbit as a weapon. That was kinda cute. But, you still use the kids to butcher Gore as a character, so fuck you for that one. Thor starts to lose, so Jane comes in to help, meaning she's gonna die after this, essentially a sacrifice. She actually defeats Gore and destroys the sword, while saying one of the cringiest lines I've ever heard in any of these films. And yeah, there are people who actually cheered for this.
Eat my hammer!
My man Gore stood there in shock from all the cringe. Despite this, the gate is still opened and Gore gets through while Thor is distracted with Jane dying. He's about to wish all the gods away, until Thor reminds him about love. Instead of stopping him, Thor is gonna spend his final moments with the woman he loves. And this reminds Gore of his own family, and how he once had a kid he loved so much. Cause his love for kids was a big part of his character, clearly. Instead of wishing for gods to die, he wishes for his daughter back, who's now part celestial. Also, he's dying for some reason. I think the sword was draining his energy. I don't know. With his last breath, he asks Thor to take care of his child, to which he agrees. I don't know. Thor's a stronger man than I am. If Gore had led to the love of my life dying, I would have told his kid to eat rocks, cause that shit ain't my problem anymore. So yeah, Gore's dead, so is Jane, and now Thor has a new kid to look after. And if she continues to be in these films, she's just gonna be a reminder of how they wasted such a great villain. Now, hold up. I've mentioned so far why I think Gore was fucked up, but I haven't mentioned what I expected from him or what would have made him an interesting villain. So let me explain. So one of my favorite game series of all time is the Fire Emblem series. It's actually where I got the name for this channel. Now, I know I tend to shit talk anime a lot on this channel, and now I'm here praising an anime game, but you know what? I'm a hypocrite, and I'm not ashamed. So let me tell you about one of my favorite villains in the Fire Emblem series, Walhart the Conqueror. Now, the ideas expressed by Walhart are by no means unique to him. There are plenty of characters in the Fire Emblem series with god-ending motivations, but I think Walhart and Valentian history best encapsulate the kind of character I wanted Gore to be. So, Walhart is the second of 3 major villains in Fire Emblem Awakening. He's introduced to us as just some guy trying to conquer the world, and he's recently taken over the continent of Valm, formerly known as Valentia. We don't get to face Walhart until the end of his arc, but his ideals and motivations are sprinkled throughout the game. As one would assume, Walhart wants to create a world ruled by power, where the weak submit to the strong. It echoes sentiments shared by previous villains like Ashnard. But once you start fighting his generals, and eventually the man himself, his true philosophy is revealed. He doesn't just want a world ruled by powerful people, he wants a world that's ruled by people, plain and simple. He is sickened by the fact that so many civilizations and kingdoms bend to the will of gods, and let the gods decide their fate. He's looking for true freedom, and for that to work, he plans to unite the continents under this cause, and take out the gods directly. Obviously there are many who oppose his beliefs, but there are also plenty of people who see the value in the world he wants to create. Walhart's desire to kill gods is proven to be a somewhat correct choice. The third major villain of the game is Valadar, King of Plagia, who has been secretly aiding your fight against Walhart. However, it's soon revealed that he was doing this because Walhart was trying to stop him from resurrecting the fell god Grima. In fact, the Plagians are willingly sacrificing themselves to resurrect this god. It's two extreme sides of an issue. One group wants to end our reliance on gods, while the other wants gods to control our lives. Walhart's ideology was something I thought Gore was going to lean into. Gore saw firsthand that relying on gods is futile, and if that's the case, then why is there any need for them? Now, while these two have their similarities, they also have their differences. For instance, Walhart's origin story is unknown. We don't know why he acts the way he does, whereas we clearly see why Gore ends up the way he does. Walhart is also presented as being more strictly evil and does things I don't think Gore should do, like wanting the world to be ruled by strength and forcing regular people to choose between following you or death. So from here, I want to expand my headcanon for Gore, and for that, we look at Valentia's history, and Walhart's supposed ancestors. Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia takes place centuries before the events of Awakening. The main antagonist here is known as Rudolph, bearing a striking resemblance to Walhart. He also wants to unite the continent against the gods, but his reasoning is a little more clear. Valentia is split into two parts, consisting of Rigel and Zofia. Rigel is controlled by the war god Duma, while Zofia is controlled by the Earth Mother Milla. With one god being about war and the other about peace, it should be obvious which side is the evil one, but it's a little more complex than just that. Yes, Rigel is ruled through strength, and so their kings lack compassion, but over on the Sophian side, the goddess Milla showers her people and her kings with enough resources to maintain peaceful, happy lives. But over time, this made the kings become lazy and arrogant. Despite being gods, Duma and Milla are also dragons, and after centuries, dragons lose their grasp on reality. In their current state, Rudolph believes that both countries will fall to ruin if this happens. Rudolph's plan isn't to entirely take over the continent and rule with an iron fist. Instead, he wants to become a catalyst for others to rise up and take him on, to truly realize they are the masters of their own destiny.
My sin. I have to draw first blood. I must awaken the people to their potential, their own strength, and stop them from leaning so hard on the blessings and precepts of gods.
So in comes Rudolph's son, Alm. I'll spare you the details, but Alm has been raised in the dark, not knowing his true heritage. So when he does rise up and defeat his father, this event and Rudolph's ideals become an epiphany for him, and he follows in his footsteps to take out the gods. His motivations are a little more positive. Alm has seen firsthand the chaos and disarray the gods are inflicting on Valentia, and he wants to put an end to it.
Fine. Then I decide to follow the will of the previous emperor, Rudolph. Oh, come on! What's wrong with personal feelings? All of you fought this far because you hold some kind of hope for the world. It's man's individual hopes and fears that shape the world, that drive it. And that's how it should be. I truly believe that. Should we let the world crumble on a god's whim? Or his absence?
So now that we have our core characters, we can put them on a line graph, with Walhart being on the evil side of this ideology, and Alm being on the good side. Some might think that Gore should be on the evil side, and the film would agree with you, but in my opinion, to make him a little more interesting, I think he leans a little more in the middle, leaning towards Alm, and I'll explain why. Because this is still anime, Alm is a compassionate leader, mostly because he has great connections with his friends and allies. The power of friendship prevails again. On the other hand, Walhart is cold and ruthless, and is described as being the personification of Alm if he had no Celica. Celica being the second protagonist of Fire Emblem Echoes, and Alm's love interest. Essentially, Walhart became a conqueror because he had no bitches. As far as we know, Walhart has never felt love for anyone, but Gore obviously has. So if Walhart is an Alm that has never experienced love, then Gore is an Alm that experienced the loss of love. Like I mentioned before, I would have preferred if Gore had adopted the same philosophy as Alm and Walhart. The idea that people shouldn't rely on the gods, because he did exactly that and he paid the ultimate price for it. That right there is already a great motivation. You don't need all this extra mind corruption shit. Have him become a sort of liberator. He kills the gods of different civilizations to show them that they never really needed them. He wants everyone to understand his philosophy without having to make the sacrifice he made. But then you might ask, where's the conflict? If he's not going around being some super edgelord scaring kids, and if the movie confirms that yes, the gods are indeed lazy, then what is there for Thor and company to disagree with? It can't really be the act of killing itself, because if some guy kills a selfish god who allows others to suffer, then is he really evil? Well, the film doesn't think so, because Thor does exactly this, and faces no repercussions and is not a villain. The answer is once again found in Ulm. Even though the gods are becoming corrupt, killing them is still going to create a harsher land to live on. They can't rely on the divine protection, resources, and foods given to them by gods. For a civilization that's relied on gods for so many generations, this is going to be a drastic change. Despite all of this, Ulm is committed to helping society adapt, no matter the challenge.
Even if we escape from Duma's control, a starving people can know no peace. Villains and thieves will arise to feed on the weakest and most vulnerable. Are you prepared to inflict that upon the world?
I will dedicate my life as Emperor to ensuring such a thing doesn't happen. And yes, I know as well as anyone that there will be losses along the way. I think I've learned that much by now. But when I think of the next 1,000 years, I don't want this. I want to leave behind a world where we shape our lives by our own hands, where we make our own mistakes and fix them as many times as necessary. That's a world worthy of a future.
For a civilization to stop relying on gods, they need direction on what to do moving forward. And that's not something I think Gore would be able to provide, because why would he? All he could do with his new power was kill gods. He couldn't become a strong leader because, sadly, he had no one left to lead. He probably thinks that everyone will benefit from this new revelation he has, and he might even be doing some good by killing some oppressive gods. But once he moves on to a new target, he'll be leaving these newly freed people in disarray or vulnerable to equally evil forces. In Gore's eyes, he's the hero in his own story, and this blinds him to the fact that he may be harming the people he's trying to free.
I'm truly creating peace.
This could also be a character growth moment for Thor, who has kind of abandoned Asgard since Endgame. You know, Thor began by being another selfish and arrogant god, and some of that does return to him in this film, especially in his opening scene where he destroys this alien kingdom by accident. It could be a nice refresher for Thor to be a strong leader and find his purpose in life through that. I hate trying to rewrite films because it does feel kinda egotistical to say, oh, my idea is better, because I don't have to worry about how I'm gonna shoot this or write this. They're just ideas, and ideas are easy to have. But like I said from the beginning, I don't really feel like they use Gore, like, at all. And when they do, they make him act in this very cartoony, contradictory way. There are plenty of people who are saying this film would have benefited from more Gore scenes. And I don't entirely agree, because I wouldn't want to see more of the character they showed us. I wanted more of Gore from the beginning of this movie, but sadly that would take a massive amount of rewriting, and is simply never gonna happen. These ideas for Gore will only live in my head unless I put them in a video. I know that someone's gonna say that this film is a comedy, and comedies are usually not this deep. Well, no, I disagree. Even a film like Thor Ragnarok managed to be a comedy with a message. The idea that Asgard is not a place, it's a people. Making the choice to abandon Asgard and all its history for the sake of saving people was a strong choice for Thor as a character.
It's too late. She's already taken Asgard.
Asgard is not a place. Never was. This could be Asgard. Asgard is where our people stand. Even now, right now, those people need your help.
It just comes down to poor writing, and unfortunately, Gore was caught in the crossfire. As far as I know, there's no other character who's hell-bent on killing gods like Gore. There's no other character that could bring up the idea that people don't need to rely on gods anymore in this universe. And for this universe, I think it's a very interesting question considering that the gods are very real things. It really felt like they were going that way, and then they didn't. Thor Love and Thunder had something really special with Gore, and then they wasted it. And now, I'll only remember him as being the MCU's most disappointing villain. By the time this thing releases, I can imagine that the Thor Love and Thunder hype train has already set sailed, if it ever existed in the first place. So I guess it's still on brand to talk about it, considering it'll be a film that nobody really cares about. Like I said in this video, I don't usually do commentary videos, especially not on superhero films. I think it's the first time I'm talking about one, which, great, that's Thor Love and Thunder that I'm doing it on. What a great way to chase some clicks. But no, after I watched this film and I kind of let it simmer in my head, I was like, you know, Gore was really, could have been really cool. And then that thought kept persisting in my mind, and I was like, well, I gotta talk about it in a video. And I felt like this was such a niche topic that I am probably the only person who would even make this video. As far as I know, as of right now, I've seen nobody else talk about it, so here we are. And that's the basis for every video I make. It usually begins with, why has no one talked about this? Let me talk about it. So there you go. If you guys enjoy this type of video, I might make more of it in the future. If you don't, I still probably will make more of them in the future because it's my channel and I'm the boss here. You can't tell me what to do. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and thank the patrons who help support your boy and the content that he makes. So yeah, you might see more of these kind of sit down and talk commentary stuff, sprinkled in with the research heavy stuff. You know, I'm not gonna stop doing those to do commentary videos. But yeah, you know, I just want to experiment. Just wanna try new things. Don't want to be stuck in one thing. And yeah, I guess that's it. You know. Did you watch this movie? If you did, I feel sorry for you. Well, that's just turned off. Also, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but if you here's a little tidbit to go rewatch the video. You might see, if I'm in the right position, you might see Windows Activate right there in the corner, and that's because I have not paid for Windows. If you didn't know, it's free. The actual thing you can pay to have it activated, I guess. I'm not gonna do that. It works fine just as it is. Windows ain't getting a cent out of my wallet. So, yeah, a little bit of a Zelcher Easter egg right there if you want to go back and watch the video. Please do, and watch all the ads. I need money. Okay, I'm dragging this out more than it needs to be. I'll see you all in the next video.